Welcome, listeners, back to another episode on Flip the Book. I'm your host, Latte, and today we are with two stars, Mac and Bailey. Nice to hear. So, let's get into business. I had assigned you guys to finish reading a novel. Did you guys finish it? Yep, we did. Nice to hear. So, are we ready to reveal to the audience what it is? Ooh, why don't we give them clues first and have them guess what it is? Yeah, it would be more fun. That's a good idea. So, what clues would you give them? How about this? It's written by a famous person back in the 16th century. I think that clue is too open ended. Maybe narrow it down a bit, Mac? Alright. They are British and they have a lot of famous work, like Romeo and Juliet. That's a pretty big clue. So, guys, before we reveal the answer, comment your guesses in the comments. Alright, and the answer is, drumroll please, Macbeth. That's right, folks. These two were assigned to read Macbeth for today's episode. So, are you guys ready to start this episode? Well, I'm ready. Same here. Okay, so let me break it down on what we will be doing today. I will be asking some simple questions from the book, some debated questions, and some out of the book questions. Oh, and for your guys' opinion on the book. And this podcast will contain spoilers from the book, so just a heads up. Okay, let's get started, shall we? Sounds good. So, can one of you guys briefly explain what Macbeth is about? I'll answer this one. So, Macbeth, a loyal Scottish general, meets three witches who tell him that he'll become king. When part of it comes true fast, his wife, Lady Macbeth, pushes him to murder King Duncan and seize the throne. He kills the king, becomes the king, and then he starts to feel guilt and paranoia takes over. He kills more people to stay in power, including his friend Banquo. The witches give him more prophecies that make him feel invincible, but they tricked him. In the end, a rebellion led by Malcolm and Macduff overthrows him, and Macbeth dies when battling Macduff. Thanks, Bailey, for briefly explaining it. Okay, now let us start off with a simple question. Who was Macbeth's friend? Banquo. Would you call them friends? I mean, you did kill him. Well, yeah, I wouldn't say friends, but they were comrades. Okay, moving on. Who told Macbeth about the prophecy? Mac, you mind answering this one? Sure. So it was the witches that told Macbeth about the prophecy. Bailey, the next one's for you. How many children did Duncan have? Two. I believe their name was Malcolm and Donnablady. Correct. Okay, last questions of the easier ones. What was the name of the leader of the witches? Hecate. Okay, so I can see that you both have read the book and understand the concept. Now I'm gonna ask some more advanced questions. Why do you think Macbeth killed the king? I think that he killed Duncan because the witch's prophecy sparked his ambition. He would be king, and the fact that he got the title Thane of Cawdor right away made it feel real. But he might have backed out if Lady Macbeth hadn't pushed him into killing the king. Oh, I would also like to add that once the idea takes hold, Macbeth starts to justify himself. He was scared of what would happen, but his ambition wins. He worries that if he doesn't grab the throne now, Banquo's descendants might claim it later. Nice interpretation, guys. So for the next question, were there any motifs or repeated idea symbols in the book that you noticed? Well, from what I read in the book, I noticed there was a lot of blood. First, I noticed in the beginning when the captain calls Macbeth a bloody man, he caused this since he was a good fighter on the battlefield when they were battling with the Norwegian army. But after a while, the blood starts to quickly turn dark when Macbeth starts to kill people close to him, and he starts to hallucinate blood all over himself and his victims. Bailey made a good point, but I would also like to add one more. Go ahead. I noticed there was a lot of unnatural stuff in the play, like the witches talking about some prophecy, wild animals eating each other, ghosts appearing, and Macbeth hallucinating floating daggers. All of these things just feels unnatural and probably wouldn't exist in the real world. Yeah, I mean, if someone were to walk up to me and start talking about some prophecies, I would probably think they are crazy. Yeah, I would run away immediately. Anyways, on to the next question. Was Macbeth influenced by Lady Macbeth all the way until the very end? I would think that at the beginning, yes, he was influenced by her, but over time, he started to act on his own. He hides Banjo's murder from her, and by her death, he's cold about it, saying that she should have died her after, or something along the line with that. Her influence fades out as he becomes more independent and ruthless. I see. Was Lady Macbeth evil for thinking and manipulating Macbeth like that? I would say she is. Her actions are pretty evil. She calls on the spirits to make her more ruthless, plots murder, and manipulates Macbeth to get her way. I would say that is pretty evil. Well, I agree with you, Mac. I also think that she had her reasons for doing that. She's loyal to Macbeth, sees the prophecy as his destiny, and in her time, women couldn't claim power directly, so she had to be manipulative in order to stay safe and rise to power. Huh, I never thought of it that way. That is a good point. Thank you. Logic. Seems there's a few opinions on this, so I guess let's get into some more debated questions on the topic of Macbeth. Let's start with the first one. Is Macbeth's downfall due to his own choices or from the prophecies? I would say it was because of his own choices. The witches predict that he will be king, but they never tell him to murder Duncan. He decided that for himself. He could have ignored it or waited, but ambition and fear drove him to that. Totally agree with Bailey, but I also get why some people might think it's the prophecies. They plant the idea, make it seem faded, and the prophecies later trick him into overconfidence. Still, he could have chosen to walk away. Just saying. Second question. Is it ever justifiable to commit immoral crimes, for example, murder, for the greater good? That is a tough one. I have to think about it. Mac, do you mind answering first? Sure. I think that committing crimes, even if it's for the greater good, is still a crime. Macbeth justifies killing Duncan by telling himself that it was to fulfill his destiny, but it just leads to more chaos and violence. Once you cross that line, it corrupts you, no matter the intentions. I see where you're coming from, but I also think that it could be justified in extreme cases. Think of a real world example, like assassinating an evil person or when killing innocent people in war to save many more. The key is whether the outcome is truly for the greater good and when it is the last choice. For a Macbeth case, it can't be justified since he killed a king out of his own ambition. Does any scene in the novel remind you of anything in the real world or feel like this has happened before in the past? Oh, this reminds me of a history lesson I learned back in the day. It was about a real Thai history during the Ayutthaya period when it was common to assassinate the king and his entire bloodline for the throne. I think this ties into Macbeth when he kills the king for power and also eliminates people who have been a threat to take his spots on the throne. I remember Macbeth saying to be dust is nothing but to be safely dust or something similar to that. The king from Thailand's logic is that if you leave one boy alive, he might grow up and take your crown. Kinda like how Macbeth killed Bancho and his sons ensures that he wouldn't be overthrown. Let's move on. Since you both finished the book, did you guys expect the ending to end like that? For me personally, I didn't expect the end to end with Macduff becoming king. I always thought that the book hinted that Fleance, Banquo's son, would be king. But didn't the book say that Banquo's descendants would be king? It doesn't specifically say that Fleance would be king. Oh, right. Now that I think about it, it does say it. So I guess it could mean that one day one of his descendants would overtake the throne, but we will know who. Well, that's all the questions I have for you guys. Thank you guys so much for coming on this episode. No worries. It was our pleasure. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this week's episode on Flip the Book. Make sure to come back to watch more episodes in the near future. Hope you guys had a wonderful day. I'm your host, Latte. Goodbye, folks.